said, the hardest part is the first 5 days. This sucks. Like, I'm tired. It's difficult. I'm just not enjoying it. This isn't fun. I'm so claustrophobic and I smell. Like, get me out of here. How painful this is. Imagine rowing across the North Atlantic for, 40 plus days. Like, I don't know if I can take on that amount of burden. It's clear that, that maybe wasn't the right decision. So I said, no, I'm not going to do it. And then as the days passed, I thought, no, what would the 90-year-old version of myself say that you turned down this opportunity to do something epic? 50% fail and 7% have died trying. I was petrified. I was scared of dying. I was scared of being in pain. I was like, I can't believe I've committed to this, but I'm just going to get on with it.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Daniel Leese Podcast. Today, I say every week I've got a special guest, but this one's a Guinness World Record holder who has literally this summer rowed across the Atlantic Ocean and got a Guinness World Record at the same time. He did it with a few friends for a mental health charity, which we're going to delve into a lot today. But he is an adventurer. Some would say borderline crazy for the stuff that he does. And today we're going to get into his mindset of what it was like rowing 56 days on the Atlantic Ocean with his friends, the ins and outs, the kind of like everything he experienced, what he found out about himself, the uncomfortable place he had to go to help you inspire to go on and do good things. Because as I said, from day one, we just want to help at least one person. And I'm sure this show is going to do that. So please join me in welcoming the Guinness World Record holder, Adam Ratcliffe. How are you, mate?
Good, pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
There we go, get the handshake in early.
So I'm doing this for some PR purposes, but just to let you know, this is going to be for you afterwards. So we can take care of
nice.
the skin after you got absolutely blitzed on the ocean for 56 days. But no, honestly, thanks for coming on. I can imagine you've obviously got loads to do, and I saw you on BBC News and all sorts, so you got lots going on. But what I'd love to kind of uncover very briefly before we get into the story is like, who are you? And kind of what is your earlier stories that has kind of shaped you into getting here today?
Yeah, I'll give you the somewhat brief version of the timeline of events that's brought us into this room today. Yeah. So I was always very sporty as a kid, but also very skinny. And I lacked a lot of confidence growing up and didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do or what I wanted to be. I was obsessed with athletics, like I was in every sports team and pretty good at everything, but I was never the best at anything. And so the dream was always to be a professional athlete, but just simply wasn't good enough. And then kind of puberty came around, like the age of, what age is that, like 15, 16 type age. And then I remember distinctly being like one of the shortest guys in the year, like second or third shortest, super late to puberty, got out-competed in so many sports as a result. And then just didn't have like a conscious identity crisis, but I was, very much thinking, what is my place in the world? What am I going to do? I was pretty good academically, and everyone just followed the path of, you study, you go to uni, you get a job. And so I kind of found myself meandering through life in my early years, like enjoyed sport, was never excellent. So I went and, got some good A-levels, went and did mechanical engineering at university, just because I was decent at maths and physics. And then did engineering. I was like, this sucks. I don't want to be sat behind a desk my entire life. Yeah. But enjoyed the learning process, pushing myself mentally, and also in the process got into really good shape. So from the age of 18 is when I started bodybuilding and like functional training, and built up my physique from 70 kilos or like 69 kilos. I was 6 foot at that point, still 6 foot now, unfortunately. Yeah. It's not bad, not complaining. But from like 69 kilos up to 89 kilos over the course of 4 years during university. Yeah. So struggled in my first couple of years with confidence and knowing what I wanted to do. And then in final year, got the degree, was feeling good about myself, like had some good mates around me, and then worked in the corporate world for 2 or 3 years. Did a bit of traveling first and then went straight into corporate. And that's when I was like, obviously 24, 25 at this point, thinking my whole life, I can see it in front of me right now. Like, I've been in this job for a couple of years. I could easily keep working my way up for the next 10 years, and then I'll be 35, 45 with my boss's job, and I won't have done any of the things that the childhood version of me thought I would have done by that age.
Wanted to do, yeah.
Exactly. So I'm fortunate in the sense that my job really sucked in the second year, and I knew I couldn't keep going, so it forced my hand, essentially. You might have heard the region beta paradox, which Chris Williamson always talks about, which is, when things are kind of all right but not so bad, you don't have that activation energy to get out of it and improve. Yeah. So whether that's you're in like a mediocre relationship and it's not bad enough to force yourself to leave, or a mediocre job or whatever that looks like. For me, I was like, no, this does suck. I need to change. And I had two choices. It was do something slightly better, maybe get another job in the corporate world and improve your social life and go from there. Or what do you actually want to do? This is kind of your last chance now. You realize you've only got one life. And I try and orient all of my decision making from the perspective of when I'm 90 or 100 years old, what would I look back and think the correct decision would be? Forgetting about fear, forgetting about what other people think, just thinking, you've only got one chance on this planet. What do you actually want to do? Yeah. What do you actually think the best decision for yourself is, to be the best version of yourself? I was like, I'm going to be an adventurer. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
So with no skills, I took a one-way flight to the Philippines at 25 years old and dedicated myself to becoming skilled in all things adventure, from skydiving, scuba diving, mountain climbing, long treks, all those kinds of things, while staying fit and documenting the entire process, doing things kind of slightly harder every single time, 1,000 meter mountain, 2,000 meter, 3,000 meter, gradually getting better at anything that my heart desired to follow, essentially. And that led us to rowing the Atlantic this summer. It'll lead us to plenty more adventures in the future. And it's obviously brought us in the room together today.
Yeah. So do you find that with the confidence side of things, is that something that still kind of affects you today?
Probably yes. But the way I see confidence is I just don't like being bad at things. So I try and look at myself as like you would in a video game character. Like, what things can you level up that you suck at, and kind of addressing your weaknesses. So, whether it's public speaking or physical fitness or intellect or how well read you are, or all kind of these facets of life. I think, what am I bad at? Can I improve it? And I think that's where confidence comes from, when you don't have kind of blind spots that you are insecure about. Because I think a lot of people's confidence issues come from, everyone has that one thing that if you bring it up, they kind of go cagey or aggressive or whatever. And I think I just enjoy the process of the pursuit of excellence, kind of in all realms. So there's things like right now I've got things that I'm not happy with, and not content with, and not in the place I want to be in my life, that I'm working on.
What is that?
Financial mainly, to be honest, at the moment. Yeah, financial goals, and making sure I have financial security for my future family and kids when that comes around. Also martial arts. Like, I'm not a good fighter. I might look like I'm pretty handy, but
I saw that you did some grappling with GSP though. No,
yeah.
I mean, that's like,
yeah.
He must have actually manhandled you if you're not very good at martial arts.
It was a funny thing, because it was a seminar that he hosted, and there was about 100 of us there, and I was the first. Like, he was doing a demonstration, just came over to me and gave me a hug. Not a hug, it was like a 50-50 clinch.
Yeah.
But I treated it as a hug.
Come here!
So I'm like, come on, GSP, this is amazing.
Let's get a photo.
I forgot I was meant to be getting aggressive with him.
Just froze you on the floor.
And working my way out of this hold, yeah. But that was a pleasure. He's my favourite fighter of all time, yeah.
Nice. And with the early days at school, when you lacked the confidence and you kind of was the last person to, let's say, develop, were you getting bullied at the same time?
Not getting bullied, I just wasn't getting any girls. So I think that was the main thing. So I did well socially. I wasn't like a cool kid, but I also wasn't a nerd. So I was in that middle group, was going to the parties, but just felt invisible. So that was probably the overriding feeling. Yeah.
And in terms of your earlier life, when you're going for all these things, what role did your parents kind of have with bringing that confidence side out of you? Did they give you any influence into actually going to do the adventurous stuff that you did later on? Or was it because we're kind of from that era where, as you said, the parents, they teach you, my parents were get a job, have a career, work that career, become successful, retire, and then hopefully you've bought a house by this time and you ride off into the sunset. Was it a similar sort of thing for you?
100%. I think parents always, they'll give you a framework based on the world that they grew up in, and it was much easier to buy a house back then. So they're get on the property ladder. But the situation's changed, or over the last, maybe not so much now, but when I went to university, you went to university as well? Or no? Oh, no, you didn't, of course. I know a bit about your story, yeah. But that kind of era was from when you kind of left school to when I left school, was it was the done thing. It was try and go to university. And now everyone's it might not actually be a good idea unless you need to be a chartered accountant or a doctor or whatever, and it's a lot of money. So But that being said, I think the best thing that I took away from my parents was giving me they just said try your hardest and do your thing. They didn't try and shoehorn me into a certain career path or limit me when I said I was going to quit my job or whatever. It was they just trust my ability to think kind of concisely and clearly and think what's the best thing for me, and then make my own decisions, because they know that I've got my best interests at heart and I'm not going to make a stupid decision. I think.
I mean, the reason why I asked this is because I don't speak to anybody that I ever went to school with. But did you have at school? Did you have friends that you then stayed in contact with?
Yeah, I actually got a lot of friends from secondary school still. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Because it's weird. It's I look back at my life and I don't talk to anybody that I went to school with. Even the guys that I was really close with. It's quite almost a little bit weird, to be honest, that I don't have any school friends that I still speak to. But even apart from actually there's one friend that I speak to that I grew up with since 8 months old. But it was just interesting to because I as you said, I suppose my experience with school was a little bit different because I just hated it. I hated going, learning was difficult and stuff like that. But when you were going through the university side of things, how were you finding that process in terms of developing as an individual?
I think university was great in terms of I needed stabilizers to get into the adult world, which I think is honestly the main purpose of university for most people.
Yeah.
It's a soft launch environment where you can be an adult without having all the responsibilities. Yeah. And so it was good in that regard to leave the nest and crack on. But I was still finding myself working out what I wanted. I actually struggled a lot with friends still in the first couple of years of university, and struggled a lot with my degree as well. I was on the limit of dropping out because it was so tough. And then those things kind of pulled through over the third and fourth year.
Yeah, and was it a big culture for drinking as well? Were you into that sort of stuff? Are you a big drinker now?
Good question. So I went to Loughborough, and it was
that's mad. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big drinking.
Nottingham and Loughborough is pretty wild.
But my stance on it was I was so not happy with kind of who I was and what I was, that I was I'm not just going to go out drinking all the time, because I knew it wasn't fulfilling. So yeah, I'd go on nights out occasionally with a couple of mates, but I wasn't the type to go out multiple times a week. It was once a month or something. So really not usual for a uni student. And then that's when I just was obsessed with the gym and gaining weight. So I just spent the first 2 years, I trained 5 times a week, every day, every week for the first 2 years of university.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you put on a decent amount of size, and then you got the confidence, and then you finished university, went into the corporate world. What were you doing?
I was an operations manager at a big distribution company.
Yeah.
And started out at 22 or 23 years old, managing 30 people, and then up to 100 people towards the end. Lots of responsibility doing, operations and also people management. So enjoyed it and learned a lot, but just the work-life balance wasn't there, and it wasn't what I wanted,
Yeah. What was the feeling? Because obviously you spoke about that moment in the beginning, about the moment that kind of tipped you over the edge. So what was that moment that you were this is too unbearable to actually face doing this for the rest of my life?
So we all get unhappy at various points in life, i.e., you're sad for a few days, or you might be sad for a week, and you think to yourself, it's normal, you go through phases of being a bit sad, and then life gets better. And that's kind of my framework that I operated from. But then this point came, it was October 2021, I think it was. And I remember I had 2 months straight of just being flat out miserable, wanting to cry every time I looked in the mirror, just not smiling at all. I'd even hang out with friends and it would feel just empty. The world was grey. And I reckon if I'd seen a psychiatrist, they would have said, yeah, you're acutely depressed, or, whatever that diagnosis would have looked like. And I thought, something's really, really not right here. And I identified that even though I feel there's no way out, and I'm genuinely, the feeling of I'm never going to be happy again crosses your mind on a daily basis. And that's obviously quite a compelling emotion. And when you think you're never going to be happy again, I've not told this story in ages because I've moved so far past it now. And it's so hard for me to remember that mindset kind of thinking back. But I remember thinking of it you're in this really dark tunnel. Like I said, the world was grey and you kind of can't see a way out. You think you're just not going to be happy and there's no change for you, or no hope for you. But I remember seeing this like flicker of light at the end where I was thinking to myself, you know, I know even though it feels real that this is my situation's never going to change, I know I'm being illogical. There was a part of my brain that was like, you're being an idiot. Like clearly there's just some, you know, hormonal or mental imbalance that's making you think that way. But the reality is you can be. Like if I teleported you to the Philippines with a bit of cold beer in your hands and got rid of all this stress and got you around some good people, you would be fine, you know? So I kind of knew that. So I hung on to that feeling and I was like, I just need to change my environment. You know, the job doesn't work, the location doesn't work. I don't have close friends, like no relationships, like with me anyway, because I had friends dotted all around the country. So I wasn't seeing them regularly. So that was a point where I was like, you know, you can't go, I thought I couldn't go on like this. I'm not talking like suicidal, but I was like, I can't, like, I'm not going to keep doing this.
Yeah. I think most men have actually been there at some point in their life, especially, as you said, like when you go down that route of just having a job that is just there that pays the bills. It's like, I've been there where it doesn't matter how good the job is or how much you're getting paid. If it's not in line with kind of like what fulfills you, it's just a constant feeling of emptiness. And it is like, you know, as you said, it's not necessarily like suicidal thoughts, but you think to yourself, you know, will I ever be happy again? Like, what do I have to do to like create some sort of joy from life? But what did you do to try and make yourself happy? Like, how did you get yourself out of that frame of mind to change? And how did the plan come around to say, right, I'm going to quit the job? Was it like, I'm quitting the job, I'm moving to the Philippines? Or was it just like first thing, quit the job, then plan something else after that?
No, it was a plan before. So I knew kind of where I was going before I quit. And I was financially tied into the job because of various bonuses, whereby if I'd left, it would have crippled me a little bit. So I had a timeline where I was like, I need to make it to June before I quit. And I knew I was going to quit in kind of November in this peak depression period. So, and actually, a lot of the load was lifted off my shoulders as soon as I made that decision to quit. Even though I still had 6 months to go, it was the umming and ahhing of not knowing what I was going to do next that was the most demoralizing.
Yeah, and I suppose a good thing as well, most people go out and spend money drinking.
Yeah.
Whereas you didn't have that problem.
Well, because I knew I'm not happy with where, I always think like, if I'm not happy with my current situation, I'm going to like bury some nuts for a rainy day, you know? Yeah. That's not an expression, is it? But
it's a good one.
Do squirrels eat nuts exclusively on rainy days? I don't know. But so I was like, at uni, I was like, you know, I'm not going to go out partying now because I'd rather get in shape and then party. And then I'm not going to spend all my money while I'm doing this job I hate because I need to leave this job I hate. So yeah, I was saving up the money and I thought, you know, I'm going to leave in June. I remember buying a GoPro. I bought the GoPro in like December in advance. I was like, I'm going to use this GoPro. I'm going to become an adventurer and vlogger and like show people that you can stay in shape while traveling the world and doing adventurous things. And I kind of had this vision and I was, you know, I'm going to post on YouTube, I'm going to post on Instagram. Maybe people will care and then I can make a job out of it, or maybe no one cares and at least I've given it a try.
Yeah. And what year was this?
2022.
2022.
Quit my job in June 22.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that wasn't even like that long ago. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I'm moving quick, Dan.
Yeah, wow, 2022. I mean, that is some achievement.
Thank you.
Wow. So, okay, and then, because I was going to say, I was thinking like, is this like back in like 2019 where like YouTube wasn't as developed as what it is, but it is obviously like, at that time it's still developed, so the tools are at your fingertips to be able to create this content. But did people care when you decided to leave?
At work or friends or?
As in, no, but like when you started creating the content and you was in Philippines and you're like, right, I'm going to create this content.
Oh, right. What, did I have followers or anything?
Yeah, did people start caring about the content you were creating?
No. It's funny because I went to the Philippines with like, I don't know, maybe like a couple of hundred subscribers. I still remember at the end of my first day, I was like, everyone subscribe on my YouTube. I had 40 subscribers. I was so happy because at least I didn't have zero, you know? So I get to the Philippines with a couple of hundred subscribers and averaging maybe 100 views, 200 views, which is okay for the start of a channel. But the problem was I'd be like vlogging my day to day and people would be like, oh, you're a YouTuber. How many subscribers do you have? And I have to be like, oh, like 100. So there is that weird moment in the interim where you're like, you have to act like not act like you're successful. You have to go through the motions of actually creating the content without having, you know, and like film yourself in public without any social proof. So it's a weird one. Yeah. And it took a little while, but I knew, you know, I was like, I'm going to do this till X amount of money runs out. Yeah. And I'm very good at not caring what people think as well.
That's good because I think as well, like, you know, we're starting to see like a bit of a pattern is like with the gym. it teaches to discipline, and it's like with the gym, it's not overnight. So you're probably quite accustomed to the fact that that things don't happen quickly. It's like a period of time, and if you keep doing that 5 times a week for 6 months, you will see results.
I love that. I've never heard anyone else say that, but that's something I've rationalized a lot before and applied to other areas of life. I think like getting in shape is such a good microcosm for, like you, exactly as you just said, I can't say it better, building discipline and realizing that you have delayed gratification for things that are worth having. And once you achieve that in multiple areas, you achieve it in the gym, maybe you achieve it financially, and like, i.e. you start your own business and you're making no money for years and then it pays off, you realize, I actually can achieve the things I want to. I just have to be willing to suck it up for a little while at the start and be bad at things. And that's the same thing that applies to mountaineering or skydiving or anything like that. No one starts being, or football, no one starts being Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
And the people that succeed are the ones that just keep getting up and keep trying, even though they're shit at the start.
Yeah, because it's when you think about, I know what it's like, because even when like the podcast, for example, I remember when I did the podcast, I started it. It was like the first 5 episodes, and I wasn't even checking the stats, but I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be class. Like, so many people are gonna listen. First 5 episodes, check the stats, 0 listens. I was like, what? And it's the same when you create content for videos and stuff, and you're like, this is such an amazing edit. Post it. 1 like.
That's the hardest part of the job, isn't it? And also it's the things that you didn't put your heart and soul and don't think there's much creative flair in, and then they go mental, and it's like, well, what am I meant to do?
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so, and then when you went to the Philippines, you said you started off doing like adventurous stuff, and then it's kind of gradually got harder. What was the first thing you started doing?
So the first thing I was like, I want to get some actual qualifications at the start. So before I left for the Philippines, I got my solo skydiving license. So I got my A license, which is the first one you get after 18 jumps. You get certified as a...
So you did 18 jumps
in
the UK?
18 jumps in the UK, and got qualified. And we can talk a little bit about skydiving, but I still love it now. I'm not obsessed and don't do it all the time, but I love dropping in and out every now and again.
How many jumps have you done now?
69 now, so 70 next week.
I was expecting you to say, I did a few hikes,
Yeah.
When it took 1,000. Nah, just jumped out of a plane.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna, I don't do things by half, so I was like, I'm gonna give this my all. And then in the Philippines was scuba. So I went to the island of Coron and did my open water, and then immediately my advanced open water. Did that over the course of a couple of weeks and learned to scuba dive.
Yeah. And what was the first jump like? Because you never did a tandem one, did you?
Exactly.
You just went balls deep and just like, I'm just going to go solo.
I would recommend anyone to do the same if you want to do a solo at some point, just go straight for it.
Yeah.
And that is one of the most condensed periods of fear I've ever had in my life, is because the plane ride takes about 20 minutes to go up. You do a day of ground school, so literally no skydiving experience. You do 8 hours of ground school where you like mock up and show that your body position and practice jumping out the plane on the ground. Then you pass a test in the evening, and then you're meant to jump out a plane the next day. But because I learned in the UK, the weather was shit the next day, so we had to go that night. So from like 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. I did my ground school, and at 5 p.m. I did my test, and then they were like, well, you're not going to be able to jump tomorrow, so we're doing it today. So then at like 6 p.m., when I thought I had a whole day to kind of mentally prepare myself, they're like, you're going. So I'm already like fried because I've spent all this time learning and haven't had a sleep to kind of let it all sink in. And the plane ride on the way up, I remember the instructor, I had 2 like very good instructors, they've both done like tens of thousands of jumps each. And I remember there's various hand signals you have to learn, and the one hand signal I got the entire way up was this, which means relax, because I'm just there like this in the plane. And I remember saying to myself, right, you're not a pussy. You're going to do this skydive because you said you were going to, and you've paid the money, and then the rest of it, and you're in the plane. You're not going to back out, are you? So we're going to do this skydive. But it was a stupid decision, and we're never doing it again. That was my internal monologue. It's like, just get on with this. You're going to do it. You'll probably be fine. Just never do it again. And petrified on the way up. And
when you talk about it, do you still feel the same emotions?
It's weird. You know yourself. Anytime you remember things, you kind of at some point you just start remembering the memory of it.
It takes you back, doesn't it?
Yeah, but it's hard to get that real visceral feeling. But with that one, I remember the internal monologue, and I remember being petrified. And And I still get that a little bit now. Like when I go up in the plane, I'm like, oh shit, I'm actually about to jump out of plane, because you don't really think about it until you're about to do it.
Yeah. And what was like? Have all your jumps been okay, or have you ever had any like touch and go moments when you're like, okay, that was pretty scary?
Two scary ones where I was like, things can go pretty wrong if you're not careful. But they were nice reality checks too. As long as everything's human error in skydiving, like it's perfectly safe. It's like a fraction of a percent of like even having to use your reserve if you do all your drills and be safe. But yeah, a couple of times like lack of experience and trying things that went wrong. I was a bit too close to the ground with not in a good position. One of them was you have to track away at the end of a skydive. So you jump from around 15,000 feet usually, and then you finish having fun at around 6,000 feet, and then you would break off from anyone else you're jumping with and track, which means like accelerate away, away from each other.
So you can kind of open the parachute and be safe, yeah? Is that why?
Yeah. So you're not under your canopy yet, but that's the idea is you want to fly away from each other so that when you open the parachute, you don't crash into each other.
Yeah.
So if there's three of you will go like triangular direction. If there's two, you just go directly away. And that skill is called tracking, where you have to like act like an aeroplane essentially. And so I'm trying to track really aggressively to show my instructor, look how good I am at tracking. But there's the body position you have to do is like roll your shoulders forwards and, like an aggressive fighter jet type thing, and catch as much air as possible. But I just like could feel the air resistance on my arms. And so I brought my arms forwards like this. And that just sent me into like turbulent stability. And then I just got whipped around. So bear in mind, we've broken off at 6,000 meters. I'm tracking until 5, and then I'm like, I'm really going to go for it. Feet. I'm at 5,000 feet, and then I go turbulence, and then I'm like upside down at 4,500 feet. Bear in mind, my instructor can't help. He's not even an instructor. He's just a coach at this point, because I've already qualified. I'm at 4,500 feet upside down. He's then deployed his parachute. I'm like, okay, better sort this out. So then I'm like working out how to like flip myself back round again, which is harder than you think if you haven't skydived yet. So I flipped myself back round at like 4,000 feet. And you've obviously got your altimeter to make sure you're not too close to the ground. But every kind of 5 seconds, you're losing 1,000 feet. So there's, I don't want to waste time looking. I know.
5 seconds?
Yeah.
So technically you're 20 seconds away from hitting the ground?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and you know all of that going into it. So I know, okay, well, I was upside down at 5,000 feet. So I was still upside down at 4,500 feet. I've just flipped myself back round, so I'm probably at 4,000 feet. And it takes 1,000 feet for the parachute to open, because when you throw out your pilot chute, by the time it catches air, you've still lost 1,000 feet. So I'm now at about 4,000, maybe 3,800, something like that. I'm not even going to look. I'm just going to slow myself down really quickly, throw in my canopy. And I remember I was under the canopy at 2,000 feet, so a bit low. And then I was like, right, well, don't try that again so close to the ground.
That's mad. Yeah. I did not know that it was like 10 seconds until you hit the ground.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's fucking, oh my, wow. 10 seconds. Whew.
So there is a safety precaution. It sounds like your life's on the line there, but what happens at 1,500 feet, if your main canopy isn't out, your reserve will automatically deploy. It's a really handy bit of kit. So if you're still traveling really quick at over like 50 or 60, I don't know the exact speed, over about 50 or 60 miles an hour, then your reserve will deploy. And that will save you in theory, but still, you don't want to be doing that.
Yeah, and when you do stuff like, because I've heard that, especially the guys that jump quite a lot, because you're on how many jumps, would you say?
70.
70 odd, yeah. So
really beginner.
Yeah. So, but I was somebody told me that when you've got like skydiving like experience and you've done hundreds of thousands of jumps, it's very hard to get excited about certain things because you're just so used to living life on the edge that it just like you find it so hard to get normal things back to like having that adrenaline rush. Did you find the same thing happen for you?
I was definitely worried about that, but even before I started skydiving, I rationalized it like that, and I thought, am I going to struggle to find meaning in the little things? But honestly, no. No, not at all. I appreciate it for what it is. Like if you went go-karting tomorrow, for example, you get that adrenaline buzz and you enjoy it and you love it and you get the thrill. You come back to normality and your baseline resets pretty quickly. So yeah, haven't really struggled with that, but I definitely thought in exactly the same way.
Do you put like some sort? Do you have like any kind of like gratitude practices which help you kind of stay grounded on these types of things?
I wouldn't say I have any practices, but I'm pretty good at remembering where I came from and like we said as well, I've done quite a lot since 2022, so it's not that far back that I have to think, you're so much in such a better position than you were. So it's easy to be like, even if you think I stubbed my toe or something went wrong or I've pulled my back or, you're arguing with someone, it's easy to think, yeah, but look at the big picture, you're doing okay. And I think everyone can apply that to their lives. And if you're not happy with your current situation or you don't feel grateful, just think, where was I 5 years ago? And you're probably, if you're giving life your all, you're probably in a pretty good position.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to frame things. It's because I think in such a digital world as well, isn't it? It's like so many people are just looking for validation outside of what they've already got. And, it's very hard when you see people flexing online and you just think, well, I'm kind of still trying to achieve my thing, and it's just like you don't feel like you're doing much of your life. So I think it's important to have like these types of practices. How long were you in Philippines in the end?
2 months in the Philippines, 1 month Indonesia, a bit of time in Australia for Christmas. Then I went to Malaysia, Egypt, Jordan, Dubai, UK. That was my first 5-month trip.
Wow.
Yeah.
Packed trip.
Yeah, packed it all in.
Did that give you a kind of like instinct that potentially life in the UK was not going to be much like a thing for you in the future?
It's honestly, it's mainly, there's 2 things I don't like about the UK. I'm so proud to be British. I really am. But there's 2 things. One of them is the attitude of the people and the fact that no one has a growth, like most people don't have a growth mindset. And you just feel like you sink to the level of, or the ambitions of the people around you. And then the other thing is like the tax structure, like, and the government, everything's set up to beat down the little guy. While I appreciate the natural beauty and obviously like have loads of British friends, there was always this feeling of like, this country's not going in the right direction. So
I think those kind of things are interlocked as well, aren't they? Because you think to yourself, what's the point in doing well? Because I'm just going to get crippled for doing bigger things.
Yeah, honestly. And like, even that was a big reason that I've, just focused on the adventures for a few years instead of finances, because I'm like, every £100 I make, the government's getting 40 quid. So,
So I may as well spend it on something I actually enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And when you was on the travels on the way back, so you did the skydiving, did you skydive in other countries as well?
Not much, a bit in Australia, yeah.
Yeah, and then you did the scuba diving, any crazy stuff that happened in between that point?
Like with scuba diving or in general or in that trip?
Anything outside of like what you already did that was kind of a little bit out there where you're like, yeah, that's...
Honestly, all I'd done is climbed mountains in England before. So I'd only climbed, Snowdon, Ben Nevis and Scafell Pike, and I loved it. I spent a year living near the Lake District. But I'd never done anything over like 1,300 meters. So yeah, I really enjoyed. I climbed Mount Rinjani in Indonesia, which is, 3,000 meters, something like that. Then I went and did Kinabalu in Malaysia, which was 4,000. And now I've done like Kilimanjaro and a 6,000 meter peak in Ecuador. But like every single time you go slightly higher, it's a real buzz and you really are pushing your limits. So they weren't particularly, anyone can do it, which is the beauty of it. Anyone can just start climbing higher and higher. Especially if you're fit, yeah. And the altitude affects people in different ways. It cripples me. So I really struggle at altitude, so I need to acclimatise. But like some people, would get on much better than me. And it's a nice, clear metaphor for success is like, there's nothing more binary than how many meters high did you climb, So it's a nice feeling of, okay, now I've done a 3,000, now I've done a 4,000. So they were fun. And yes, I've done some cool scuba diving over the years as well, because I don't actually like diving that much.
I was going to say, like, what do you prefer, being out of water or in the water? Because a lot of people love, like, literally, you've watched the documentaries on, like, the Netflixes and stuff where the people just love being in the water.
Yeah.
And I did a podcast with another Guinness World Record holder who's done the longest surf, Australian fella. But he grew up in the water and just, like, he would go to work and work in a surf shop and just loved the water. So, like...
How long was the surf? It must have been minutes.
Longest surf night, it went on for hours, mate.
Wait, what do you mean longest surf? Like longest time in the water?
Yeah, longest time in the water.
I thought you meant like longest wave.
Yeah. Okay. Imagine, 48 hours in the same wave. Tsunami.
Like, where's that wave? Yeah. Nice. How long did he surf for?
Oh, God, I think it was like 2 days in the end, or 3 days. It was mad.
That is mad.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's not like you enjoy necessarily being in the water.
No, I like being by the water for sure. I like doing water sports, but I don't like being in it.
Yeah, nice. And then we're still in 2022 when you get back to the UK.
23 now. 23. Yeah, March of 23.
And at what point did the row across the ocean come about?
So in, what are we now? It's October 25. Yeah, so in March of 24, I had travelled almost every continent, and I was in Ecuador, and my mate Jack, who lived in the UK and is a world record holder, he was the first person to row from Europe to North America solo, and it took him 111 days. He rowed across the mid-Atlantic to do that, which is grim. Yeah, solo. It's a long time as well, 3.5 months that, isn't it? Nearly 4 months. Solo. Yeah, didn't speak to it. He obviously had a sat phone, but like didn't see another human. And yeah, now I've done a row like that, I can fully contemplate how mental that is.
Yeah.
So he'd
already had the experience.
He'd had the experience, and he was integrated into the ocean rowing community. And so he had a friend called Chris who owned boats and chartered boats. And one of his boats got abandoned off the Canary Islands by a team that wanted to row the mid-Atlantic from the Canaries to the Caribbean. They abandoned it on day 4 and got helicopter evacuated. I think they just were like, because the last time you can get evacuated is like day 4 or 5. So they were on day 4 and they were like, we're not gonna do this. So they gave in.
Geez, so do you know the story actually of how they got evacuated, or?
Well, it was a helicopter evacuation, and no one knows the real reason why. But like, obviously, they were like, they liked the idea of ocean rowing more than the reality, perhaps.
Pussies.
Yeah. Well, I don't know him. Well, I did it. It wasn't that bad. It was pretty bad.
So that's mad. So they abandoned the boat in the Canaries, and you found it in Bahamas.
Yes, exactly. It took a year to float from the Canaries to the Bahamas. This same boat that we rowed across. And so Jack calls me and says, Adam, there's this boat in the Bahamas. I was in Ecuador at the time. He's like, do you fancy coming to rescue it? I was like, yeah, that's literally that's in my job description. That's exactly what I want to do. And everything was broken on it, so it had like no electronics, and it was obviously washed up, but it's shipwrecked on a beach rather than rocks, so it wasn't destroyed. So I go to the Bahamas. Chris, the boat owner, comes out. Brucey, who's ex-Royal Marine, also came out, who we ended up rowing the Atlantic together with. And we spent a couple of days on this really rogue Bahamian island, and it was like a real visceral adventure. As adventurous as it gets. It's like we've got to try and convince the police to let us have the boat, even though it's our boat, and we've got to try and go to the local shops to get bottles of water and tinned food, and we're like, how are we where are we going to go? How are we going to get to Miami? Because you've got the Gulf Stream that's like blows you north off the coast of Florida. So we mapped out this route of, we've got to dodge dodgy weather systems and winds and try and island hop our way across.
Because that area around there is pretty nasty, isn't it, for weather conditions?
Can be, yeah. So we basically we'd have a gap in the wind where it was either neutral or pushing us in the right direction. Then we'd row for a couple of days. Then we'd stop on an island for a day or two. Then we'd row again to another island. And in the end, it took us 11 days and 6 days of rowing to island hop from this island in the east of the Bahamas all the way to Palm Beach in Florida. And that was one of the coolest things I've ever done, because there was one point, the second island we went to, we didn't know what was on the island. It was called Fraser Hogg Key. And we kind of turn up and we know a storm's coming. We had to make it by a certain amount of time. And we rock up at 6 or 7 a.m. And there's this abandoned pontoon. It's just everything's abandoned. There's no buildings on there. And we're like, what the hell? What is this place? Doesn't matter. We need to just get ashore, and we'll just sleep on the beach for a couple of days till the weather changes or whatever. So we get to this pontoon, and this old American man and a slightly younger, a 40-year-old American man and an 80-year-old come out to the pontoon, and they're like, what are you guys doing here? They think our engine's broken and we've had to resort to rowing or something. And we pull up and explain what we're doing, and they welcome us in to the house and offer us a coffee and a bagel. Very grateful. And that we were like, so our plan is we kind of wait for the weather, and then we'll go off in a couple of days. Where's the shop? We'll go and kind of go to the shop, so we're not eating your food. And they were like, oh no, there's no shops on here. And we found out that they were the only people living on the island.
Wow.
And they get the boat over from America with their supplies, and so they bring all their carbohydrates over, and then they they spearfish for their protein. And it was kind of the two men, a couple of wives, and then a couple of young daughters as well. So they invited us to sleep on their floor. And taught us to spearfish, and we got lobster and fish, and then had a barbecue with them.
What a cool experience,
man!
And
you couldn't write it.
Yeah,
that's one of the single most.
Was that island still classed as America then, or is it?
It's owned by the Bahamas. Yeah.
Oh wow! And so they did. I mean, did they have to pay to rent that island or what?
They don't own. I guess they own the land and the house. Yeah, but they don't own the island. They just own kind of a plot of land, and there was a couple of other abandoned houses.
That's so cool.
Yeah, really cool. So they go out every now and again, and they had their own water tank. really cool adventure.
I mean, we've both had experiences, right, of having island life, so we know what it's like to have that experience. But it is going back to like
You're
kind of
also like in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Right,
So when you go back and talk about like obviously what makes you happy, it is literally there's not much that you need to make you happy. Like being on the island, learning how to spearfish, catching lobster, like.
Not staring at a laptop, not staring at a phone, not worrying about money or taxes or relationships. It's just like hanging out with people that you got a bond with, and experiencing primal things. It's the most satisfying thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So how long did you spend on the island in the end before you went to Miami?
So on that one, we were there for 2 nights on the floor. Then we rode over to an island called Bimini, which is a bit more built up. And then we were there during a storm for 3 days. And then we spent 2 days rowing over to Miami.
Nice. And was there any hairy moments, or you kind of just dodged it all?
On that trip, there were no hairy moments, but it was difficult. Like, even though it was only 7 days of rowing.
Yeah.
They say the hardest part of rowing an ocean, and now I say they, like I guess I can say this too because I've done one. But before I'd done the Atlantic, it was like everyone that I spoke to that had rowed an ocean, they said the hardest part is the first 5 days because you're like adjusting to ocean life. And the problem with the Bahama row was we'd do 2 days, then we'd get back to land life for a day or two, then we'd do 2 days again. So you'd do this 3 hour on, 3 hour off sleep cycle of like sleeping for 3 hours, rowing for 3 hours, sleeping for 3 hours. And you don't settle into it because you're like, okay, we're sleeping through the night again and awake in the day. So I did that first experience, and I thought to myself in that final stint before we got to Miami, like, this sucks. Like, I'm tired, it's difficult. I'm just not enjoying it. Well, obviously I had an amazing time, but it was really difficult, and I just wanted to wash. I wanted to eat. I was like, this isn't fun. I was so claustrophobic, and I smell. Like, get me out of here. And so I thought to myself in that moment, think about how painful this is. Imagine rowing across the North Atlantic for 40 plus days. Like I don't know if I can take on that amount of burden. And so we got to Miami, and the plan was being hatched amongst us boys of doing that Atlantic row. And I was like, I'm just going to sit on it for a bit and decide how I feel, because I really don't think it's a good idea.
Just so I can understand the timescale here. So the Miami trip was when?
March 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then did you go back to UK in the middle of this as well then? Okay.
Yeah, so it took us a year basically from March 24, recovering the boat, to prepping it, getting our sponsorship, making the expedition plan in order to start in June 25 for the North Atlantic crossing.
Nice.
I sat on it for a month, and I was like, am I going to do it? Am I not going to do it? As far as the boys were concerned, I was going to do it. And then...
But in your mind, you're like...
In my mind, I was like, really sucked, And that was only 7 days. So then I kind of, as the pain fades away over the coming weeks, I was like... I landed on no in my mind. This is how I like to make decisions as well. I'll commit to a decision in my head, and then I'll just sleep on it for a couple of days. And if you've got emotional angst about that decision, if you haven't got emotional angst about that decision, you know it's the right one. Whereas if you've got a bit of underlying emotional angst about the decision you've committed to, it's clear that, that maybe wasn't the right decision. So I said, no, I'm not going to do it. And then as the days passed, I thought, no, what would the 90-year-old version of myself say that you turned down this opportunity to do something epic? And that's how I landed on deciding to do it. Because
I noticed that the stats of this as well is rowing across the Atlantic, 50% of people that attempt it fail, right?
Yeah, the North Atlantic, 50% fail, and 7% have died trying. Yeah.
Wow. And so you finally decided you're going to do it. Tell us about the training that goes into rowing, because I mean, obviously with the fact that most people have not done this. It must be hard trying to actually understand how you can train to cope with this.
It was hard for me as well, because it was a team of 4 of us. Myself, you kind of know my story at this point. Jack Jarvis, who spent 10 years in the Royal Engineers, was a Green Beret commando as well, like hard as nails. Like, you give him any task and he'll just get on with it, and like he'll pass out before he stops. So, one of the most physically resilient people.
I admire that mindset. It's just like,
It's one of his best mates said to me, Jack's the type of guy, if there's like a pile of sand and a hole over there and a shovel, you just say, do that, put all the sand in the shovel. He won't even ask any questions, just straight in and gets it done. It takes hours, whatever. He just works at 100%. So, I forgot where I was going. I kind of give a summary of the other two. And then you've got Brucey and Nutty, who 10 plus years each in the Royal Marines, hard as nails as well, also spent a lot of time on the ocean. And that was it. And those two are, like, you give them a mission and you wouldn't bet against them. And so they really thrive in that mission-oriented environment. But then when it comes to like training regularly and the mundane, some sessions were missed. And so I was observing them kind of not taking training as seriously as Jack was. But they've also rowed across an ocean before. So I was like, I can't copy what they're doing. I need to make sure, because I know they're going to get through it. They're going to be fine. They're just like so resilient. They'll put up with anything. Break a leg, break a finger, no sleep. They'll just get on with it. I'm not that I'm not that hard. So I was like, I need to train, because if I start to get arthritis or my back hurts or my elbow gives in, or whatever, I was like, that's not going to be comfortable. So I want to prepare myself. So then I was kind of copying Jack. I was doing. When did I start properly? I started properly 6 months out, rowing kind of 30 minutes every day. And then it just tapered up to, before the row, doing like at least an hour and a half a day for the month preceding the row.
It's not even a lot compared to what you're about to do.
It's not, but
then I
it
suppose
does condition.
You don't want to overtrain, do you, either?
No, you just want to get the joints and the muscles used to being efficient in that movement path, and also knowing that your lower back and your elbows aren't going to give in. But there's an element of, you're not going to practice by rowing 12 hours a day. It's just not feasible.
Yeah. And then the day comes where you decide that you're going to go, and there was some complications with weather at the beginning, wasn't there?
Yeah, you've done your research. Yeah. How do you know all of this? Yeah, we were meant to go on the 16th of June. We just plucked a date out of the air because we knew that the weather we were going to go. The only thing we can control is when we leave, like what the wind's doing. Once you're in the ocean, you can't control the weather, obviously. So it was the 16th, and the wind was pushing us back into Manhattan. So we were like, well, it would be stupid to try and battle into this. So we waited until the 19th, when it still wasn't great, but we were like, we're not just going to sit around because we've got 2 months of rowing to do. So on the 19th, it was okay, and we were like, let's just send it. So we took off on the Friday instead of the Tuesday or whatever it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and they say obviously about the first 5 days. Like, what was the first 5 days like?
So I thought to myself, before I went into it, I was petrified. I was scared of dying. I was scared of being in pain. I was like, I can't believe I've committed to this, but I'm just going to get on with it.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, everyone says the first 5 days is the hardest, so just get through the first 5 days. Don't worry about the rest of the row. Just worry about the first 5 days. So I'm on the boat, and the first 5 days sucked. Like, not only was it, we had to adjust to the conditions. It was so hot because we were in the Gulf Stream. It was, but also we had beam on conditions, like waves hitting us from the side constantly, which means you had to keep the cabin doors shut constantly overnight. So you're doing your 3 hours of sleep, and by the time or like 2.5 hours of sleep, and by the time you've done maybe an hour and a half, because the cabins are so full of food, you've used all the O2, and it's just loads of CO2 in the cabin. So you're gasping for air. You wake up like suffocating, and you have to like open the door, breathe really heavily, let some oxygen in and the CO2 out, then close it again, and then try and get another 45 minutes of sleep. So you're not even recovering properly. You're really hot. You're sweating. You're thinking, is it all going to be like this? But again, I was like, just get through the first 5 days because you know it will get easier. And then, sure enough, day 5 or day 6 comes around, and you can probably imagine what I'm going to say. I was like, "This still sucks." I thought I'd be used to it, but this is awful. Day 7 comes around, and then things got even worse when we capsized. But yeah, that was the hardest part. It wasn't the first 5 days, actually. I can tell you when the hardest part was for this row. It was between days 5 and days 10, because not only did I realise that the first 5 days wasn't the hardest, I also realised I've still got at least a month and a half more of this to go, and there's no escape. And also we capsized in that time, and felt very fragile. And also we thought, if we've capsized on day 7, say it takes us 45 days, that is, 6 more capsizes in total in this boat that is, we've rescued from abandonment, and it's like 15 years old. So we were like, this isn't actually going to plan.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously with the capsize, you're thinking to yourself, like, you can only get evacuated 4 days in, up to 4 days in. Yeah. So after 4 days, if you capsize, what is the protocol? I mean, not capsize, but if you say, for example, did you actually look into what would have been the way out from that point onwards? Yeah.
So you have a couple of options. We have a life raft on board. We have some emergency beacons. So we all have personal locator beacons. So if we, for whatever reason, could deploy those, and our location would be known via GPS to our safety officer on the ground. We also had a beacon on the boat that we could deploy to say we were distressed, and that would track our location. We also had a sat phone, a Garmin InReach, and a lifeboat. So in a worst case scenario where the boat starts to sink or something like that, we deploy the lifeboat, we put our life jackets on, we deploy our beacons, and then we wait for rescue. And the international maritime law is such that if there's a boat in distress having a mayday, the nearest vessel is kind of morally obliged to come and have a go at saving you. It's still not easy in those circumstances because you might be 6 hours away from a cargo vessel, you might be 2 or 3 days away from a cargo vessel, and these ships are massive. They're
huge,
10 meters high in order to get to the side or whatever.
Yeah, some of them are like kind of like almost like a high-rise building, right?
Exactly. So even boarding them isn't so easy as the Somali pirates will tell you, I'm sure. Yeah. And so that's kind of the process. So we did have hope if the boat started to go down.
Yeah. And what was were you in the cabin when it capsized, or were you actually rowing?
I was on deck. We weren't rowing because it was such a fierce storm that we stopped rowing and put out the parachute anchor. And the parachute anchor is an underwater parachute that catches air to stop the boat moving in the wrong direction in an extreme storm. So the parachute anchor's out, and unfortunately, because of a weird weather system, the current was perpendicular to the wind and the oncoming waves. So our boat was facing perpendicular to the oncoming waves. I was out on deck. Jack was out on deck after a horrible night, like being in this 40-degree cabin, and the two of us are kind of just inspecting the deck and cooling down because we were absolutely roasting and had no sleep all night. It's about 6 a.m. at this time. And we're facing each other, and there's
black, like dark?
No, sunrise, yeah. Okay. So we came out kind of at sunrise. We were like, fuck this, we've not had any sleep.
Imagine if that had been like pitch black.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, true. I hadn't considered that. And so we look over to the side, like over to where the waves are coming from, because you always have an eye on where the waves are coming from. And there's just these rolling 1 meter waves, so nothing to worry about. You're just getting kind of rocked around, nothing's breaking. But every now and again you get a rogue wave, and it can be 2.5 times the size or similar, and it can, because it's got so much more energy, it will crash and it will get a white horse on the top, and then it will break on you potentially. And we just got this, all the stars aligned in the worst way possible, whereby there was this kind of 2.5 meter wave that was gathering energy, and we could feel it because the resonance meant that the water kind of went calm, and we were like, what's going on? Is there a big one coming? Look over to our left and just see this big massive water coming towards us for a couple of seconds, and we were decent at reading the waves at this point because it was day 7, and you could tell that's going to break. Is it going to miss us? Is it going to break after us, before us? It looks like it's going to break on us. It looks really big. Let's just hold on and see. But surely we're not going to capsize. Like, I don't know, because we hadn't capsized yet, and we hadn't been absolutely fucked yet. We were just thinking, I don't know what's going to happen, but surely we're not going to capsize. So we kind of look at each other, look at the wave, and sure enough, it breaks on us. We're clipped in, we have harnesses on and we're clipped in, but we just get thrown over. So we get whipped over the side of the boat immediately. The boat then rolls on top of us, instantly capsizes. So we go in, the boat comes on top of us, we're underneath the boat, loads of whitewash on top of us. The boat then flips because of the inertia, comes all the way around, and we're kind of holding on underwater for about 3 seconds, just protecting my vitals, holding my breath, because I've surfed a bit as well. So I was like, don't panic. You're in the water. Just wait. Don't try and find up because you don't know where up is. Just hold. So I managed to keep hold of
this. Is there like an air bubble or air pocket in this section or not?
So I was outside the boat. We both were. So we were under the boat, but and it flipped so quickly that we were just kind of under it but outside it. And so I was just waiting 3 seconds or so, waiting for the energy of the water to calm down, and then kind of came up, looked at Jack. He was there too. You know, I was okay, he was okay. We clambered onto the boat. Nutty in one of the big cabin really banged his head because he went obviously upside down for a second or two. And Brucey was in the small cabin, and all you have to do in the small cabin, because it's tiny, you just put your hands up and you just locked in. So he was fine.
He was lucky, yeah.
Yeah. A couple of them lost their shoes. So Nutty and Brucey both lost one shoe each, which was pretty hilarious. So we laughed about that for a few days or weeks. I'm quite happy, but I got this massive gash on the outside of my left foot. I'm happy about that because I don't have any tattoos, but I quite like getting scars every now and again when something cool happens. So I've got this cool scar on my foot now. I don't know how I cut it, but it was really deep and it took about a week to heal. That was the only real damage. And so we're back on the boat, and Jack and I were like, that was pretty exciting, wasn't it? Like, good to get the adrenaline up. But then as the adrenaline goes and you're in the cabin, there was this kind of like moment where you know when you're like pretty scared and you're like rocking yourself back and forth, kind of trying to soothe yourself.
It was almost like a little bit of trauma. Yeah.
So Jack and I were kind of Brucey and Nutty were getting pissed up on the deck with a bottle of Jack Daniels that we had saved for a rainy day, and Jack and I were in the cabins just like trying to soothe ourselves and be like, everything's going to be all right. And then we were on parachute anchor still for another day, so we were kind of just coming to terms with the situation.
Yeah.
And
like, there's 56 days. Yeah, 56 days. It's a long time.
Yeah.
Like, what are you getting up to in between these days? Like, does 24 hours feel like 24 hours when you're like got 3 hours on, 3 hours off?
Because you don't sleep all in one go. Sleep is your brain's time to kind of reset and calibrate what happened in that day and set me up for the next day. Because we're constantly 3 hours, 3 hours, 3 hours, it never feels like you've closed off a day and started a new one. So it just feels like one really long day of blackness and light and blackness and light. It doesn't feel like days in the conventional way. And when you're suffering, days feel long. So like a day or two can feel like it's never going to end, obviously. And then sometimes, I remember there was a period about 2/3 of the way through where we got some nice calm weather for a week. And I voice noted, I've still not listened back to these voice notes, but I voice noted myself every few days, like completely raw. Stuff that I didn't intend on sharing, just like stuff that was private, how I was feeling, emotions, and just a real raw summary of how I felt in the moment. And I've still not listened back to them, but I remember I kind of pull out the phone to do another voice note. And at the end of that calm week, I was like, it's probably been a couple of days. I pull it out and it's been like 9 days. And so I was like, oh my God, I can't believe how quickly time's passed. So yeah, it was a weird contrast of fast and slow. Yeah. There was a lot of FOMO as well, because everyone had a sick summer over in Europe because the weather was amazing. We were just stuck on this boat, you know. It did feel very isolated. Yeah, even though you were with the boys and we were kind of, we were making history, there was definitely a few occasions where I was like, I'd rather just be in a beer garden than making history right now.
Yeah, but also as well, I mean, like you've done something that not many people will ever be able to do.
Yeah.
So like actually looking back at that moment and being like, I've done that is such an incredible kind of thing to say. Most people most people go on holiday once a year, let alone row across the Atlantic Ocean, So, but when do you think you'll listen to the voice notes?
Good question. Whenever I'm compelled to. Could be probably a few months away still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there something holding you back from wanting to listen to it?
I think, like, trauma is an overused word, but there's definitely, I'm definitely somewhat traumatized from that entire experience, right? Not that I could put my finger on what it is, and I'm not unhappy, I'm not sad about it, but like it was intense. And it was a lot of emotion to process at the time, and I was so glad to be off that boat. And also because my social media did pretty well, like my professional opportunities rose a lot as a result of it, meaning that I've come off the boat and I've not really decompressed. I've just been like, how am I going to, like I spoke about earlier, secure the financial security for my future family by capitalizing on this momentum? So I was like, you would never forgive yourself if you unwinded now and rested and decompressed and did, internal work. I'd rather secure that financial security for the good of my future family. So I haven't really processed all of those feelings or thoughts yet, and when I feel like it's the right time, I'm sure I will.
I can imagine there's lots of footage as well, because I watched all the 4 episodes.
Nice.
And it was so condensed into the time that you were actually there, that was like, I thought when I was watching it, there must be so much footage that's not been included in this.
There really was, and I didn't edit those either, so I've still got to go through all of those too.
Yeah. And who actually decided on what was edited then in the end?
So we had 2 documentary makers, James Poole and Johnny Wong, and I went to uni with Johnny, and they're both professional filmmakers now, and we just sent them all the footage and gave them full creative direction, and they told the story about the mental health direction and the struggles and the whatever kind of stories they thought compelling to tell, they made.
Yeah, and we haven't really spoken much about like tough days, but what I know you spoke about between the period of you thought the first 5 days was tough, and then actually between that time to then day 10, but all the other days in between, can you have a recollection of what day potentially was the biggest struggle for you?
You have struggles mentally in your own mind about life on land quite a lot. You'll go through periods of not worrying about life on land, just thinking about what's happening on the boat, and then you might have a little existential crisis of, I need to, what am I going to do when I get back? How do I actually truly feel about this, or how do I truly feel about that? I was making the decision whether to move over to Dubai or not on the row. I was like, should I? Here are the pros and cons. You have plenty of time to think about it.
Yeah.
And so there are moments where you get in your own head, like the FOMO of missing out of a summer and things like that. So there's definitely points you wrestle with like missing people or wondering what's going on at home. But then there's also the element of when things are really tough. There's one particular night where we were only about a week away from finishing, and we had had a nice stretch of weather before. So I was like, please, just no more adversity. Let's just get to the other end now. Like, you know, we've done all the hard stuff. Like, it's been difficult enough. Let's just get there. And then we were greeted by 3 or 4 meter swell from a due southerly location. We're trying to go like almost due east, and we had like 3 meter swell from the south. So that's like, you know, picking us up, dropping us down, not breaking on us, but it's intense. And we couldn't go perpendicular to it. We couldn't go due east because it was too strong. So we had to just go due north for an entire day. So we ended up going like 50 miles north, which wasn't the end of the world because we were kind of going northeast. During that period, it's really hard to steer because the wave keeps wanting to turn you west or east. It doesn't want you to keep kind of perpendicular to it. And I was steering, Nutty and I were in the steering seat. And so it's like playing Operation, you know, where you're like trying to pluck the thing out. Like that amount of mental effort, you can't switch off for half a second, because as soon as you're not pointing the steering in the right direction, it will just take itself away. So you have to constantly be feathering it and speaking to the other guy, just on the right, just on the left, telling them just to pull on the right, just to pull on the left, while you're trying to steer with your feet as well. And so you're mentally drained. And that same night, the seats broke a couple of times while I was resting. So on both of my night shifts, I just got to sleep for about 50 minutes and got a knock on the cabin. Bear in mind, it's like cold and wet, and a knock on the cabin, like, can you get this out? Can you get that tool out? You know, like trying to, everyone's kind of pitching in. So I ended up having no sleep, probably like an hour and a half sleep that night, combined with that mental fatigue. Yeah. And that was really, really testing.
And that must have been what, day 40-ish?
Yeah, maybe day 35 to 40, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's like really like starting to like get to you.
Yeah.
And you mentioned obviously about some of the lads drinking. Jade, did any of them actually get drunk on?
Yeah.
What?
So Nutty and Brucey love a sesh, and on both the first two, we had 2 bottles of liquor, and the first 2 times we were on parachute anchor, they just saw off both bottles. So they had the JD the first time, and then whatever the other drink was the second time. It was quite funny, to be fair. Like they helped them get through it. So
yeah. Did you have a drink as well, or were you just kind of like off?
I had for Nutty. It was Nutty's birthday on one of the days, so we all had like a mini couple of shots of whiskey. But yeah, I didn't. I got like a little bit tipsy on one of the days, and it felt great for a few hours, and then you just felt groggy again after.
Yeah, exactly, and the groggy stuff afterwards. And I noticed that when I watched the documentary as well, like you washed on the boat rather than some of the other lads actually jumped in. Like, did you have a fear of jumping into the water?
A bit, yeah. We all jumped in a similar amount, but that was just kind of the footage that we showed. But certainly the water was 5,000 meters deep at some points. And so it was, when you're in...
The psychological battle of like, what is beneath me?
You can't see anything. And you're like, you know, you spend days seeing various tuna and dolphins, and you don't know where the sharks are. So you're like, I'd rather not be in the water. But the main reason for that is the salt. You have to work hard to get the salt off you. And you don't want to chafe, obviously, anywhere in any of your joints. So tried to keep it fresh water when we washed.
And coming on to that, like, how was the injury side of things? Because 56 days of doing exercise like this, there has to be some form of injury that came along the way.
Yeah, I still had arthritis in my hands for about 3 weeks after coming back. If I clenched my fists, it really hurt, just because you're constantly holding the oars. A few of us suffered like tennis elbow for a couple of weeks. And yeah, you just get the odd like shoulder issue and niggle. But the thing is, when you're in that situation and you just have to keep going, your brain at some point goes, oh, well, I'm going to stop telling you about this pain because you're not listening to me.
Yeah. And what about the pain that you had on your ass?
Oh yeah, that was bad. Actually, I forgot about that.
That must have, like, when I was watching that, I was like you kind of played it down, but I was like, that must have really hurt. Like, and you're sitting on your ass like all the time.
Yes. So everyone always had spots on their asses, right? Because that's the one biggest, most important piece of admin is you use a baby wipe on your bum after every shift. And that's to get the salt off, get the sweat off, and clean it so that your pores can breathe. And we slept naked, usually bum up to like let the skin breathe.
Yeah, breathe.
But you can't avoid it. So we all had spots at various points on our asses and everyone's bum hurts at various points. So, and obviously these guys are hard as nails. So I come on shift and there's this one point where I'm like, this one really hurts. And I kind of said to Brucey, like, my bum hurts, mate. And he was like, yeah, everyone's bum hurts. So I get on with it. I'm like, no, you don't understand. So I kind of got on with it for a day or so. And I was like, Nutty, who I shared a cabin with, can you just look at this? Because like, and I've got some weird photos on my phone still. People pay a lot of money for that. Where I kind of got like legs akimbo, like phone in my gooch, like taking a picture of. No one hack my iCloud, please, if you're listening. If you're listening to this. And just trying to take a picture of this spot, and it's like really red, really inflamed. And normally, if you have a like spot on your bum, you can just sit on a slightly different angle. So instead of sitting on the right bit, you can kind of maneuver your cheeks or whatever. But this one was like right on the bottom of my right bum cheek, and there was no getting around it. So I kind of showed Nutty, and he was like, "Oh my god, yeah!" It was about that big in terms of like inflammation, but there was a head on it that was like that big, like a pea that was a blood blister, like a dark blood blister. And it got to the point where I literally couldn't sit on it. I was like, I made like a ring out of my t-shirt in order to get through my shift. And I was like, I can't keep going like this. And then Nutty was like, yeah, that is actually really bad. And Brucey was like, yeah, okay, that is really bad. And so Jack was on his off shift he was resting. And so he didn't want to be disturbed. Yeah. And kind of we all call in, like, Jack, do you mind like sorting me out, helping me out in the big cabin? Because I was in the small cabin at the time. You can't do any operations in there. So we got a sterilised needle and like, a couple of bits of kit, and said to Jack, do you mind, if I come in and you sort this out? And he was like a bit annoyed, so he shouted like, yeah, whatever, come on, hurry up, let's get it done. And I'm like, that's not the kind of attitude you want your nurse to have when they're about to put a needle in your ass. So I was like, yeah, but Jack, can you kind of do it nicely, like, and we'll take our time. And he was like, yeah, whatever. And I was like, okay. So I go in and I'm like legs in the air. He's like far too close to my arsehole than I would have liked. And he's got this needle, and all he does is this very light tap, and then it just like explodes. The pressure's released, and then he like goes in a bit harder and just makes sure everything's gone. And then we used like this because we got all our med kit from America. They've got some strong stuff. Yeah. So we used this antibiotic cream that then over the next couple of days it went down, and that was about 3 weeks from the end, and that fully healed about 2 weeks after I got back on land. So it was about 5 weeks of like having that that issue.
Yeah, that must have been harsh.
Yeah.
And then what when you knew that you were kind of like close to land, like how was the feeling of like, okay, this is nearly done?
You don't believe it. Even a day before, we were just planning the finishing party, and kind of like it was all hypothetical because we'd been planning the finishing party since day 2. So we were like, you don't believe it because you can't see land. Even a day from the end, even 12 hours from the end, you can't see land. So you think, you don't believe it's going to be over, but your brain's starting to rationalise the fact it's nearly done. And it was only when, in our final few shifts, we saw land for about 6 hours before we got like landed, because there were other like rocks around and stuff. And we saw the first lighthouse, and we were like, oh my God, boys, like it's actually happening. You get this. It's like being a kid at Christmas. I don't know everyone's experience with Christmas, but when you're like 5 or 6 or whatever, and you just get that warm, fuzzy feeling of
can't
like,
sleep.
Yeah. Like I'm just so excited. Like you feel like it's the best day ever. It was that kind of feeling where it was like, I can't believe this is happening. And we're just buzzing, so full of excitement. And get to land, and we landed at 2:46 a.m. on the Scilly Isles, just off the coast of Cornwall. And the first thing the guy said to us, the harbour master was waiting for us as we landed. We step off the boat, and we're like, "Do we smell, by the way? Because we're sorry about that." And he was like, "Yeah, there's certainly an aroma like coming from your general direction." We're like, "Okay, cool." But he knew we were coming. We'd been sat phoning, so he was like, he prepared us a roast chicken and like bananas and bread and stuff, and we were like so excited because he prepared us t-shirts and a shower, and we were like, yes, this is going to be amazing. So we had really high hopes. And then he said to us, and I still don't know if he was joking, he said to us just as we're pulling in, so I imagine you want to like sleep on the boat tonight for one last night, right? And we were like, no way, is there like surely there's somewhere else. We'd all have rather slept on the tarmac outside, and he was like, yeah, of course, you can sleep in the office. So that's what we did. We went in and we had Cornish pasties and chicken at like 3:30 in the morning, 4 a.m. I probably had about 3,000 calories just like immediately at 4 a.m. Went for a shower, best shower of my life, and then had about 2 hours sleep on the harbour master's floor with my backpack as a pillow. And that was the best sleep of my life. And then the next morning went into town, had full English breakfast with the boys, which we've been talking about and dreaming of for 2 months.
Yeah.
And it was just everything was so like raw and vivid, and it's the exact contrary to how I explained life when you're depressed, of like everything being grey and like not feeling anything. It was the exact opposite of that. Like that depression would be like the dials turned down to 0 sensitivity, and this was like turned up to 100 sensitivity. Whereas maybe in normal life you operate at 50 or whatever. And so it was a real blessing to be able to experience that. And the part of me is like, I quite like to suffer again for an extended period of time to feel that again.
To feel that again, yeah. And I mean, I suppose it really helps with like, again, delayed gratification, which we all need in today's type of society. But now that you've had this experience, like when you go to bed in a nice comfy bed and when you have access to a shower, do you kind of look at things differently now? Like that side of things when it wasn't accessible to you?
I wish I did. So in the 6 months leading up to the row, I was so grateful for every night I was in bed because I was petrified of being on the water. So even in the like six to 8 months before, I was appreciating every night in bed. I was appreciating food because I was thinking I'm not going to have this soon. And then when we finished and came back, the appreciation, like I said, was 100 for 2-3 weeks. I was like eating every dessert, just like enjoying every night's sleep. It was just a real blessing and everything felt amazing. Sure enough, like even now, you know, it's having this, I've been back for 2.5 months. Having this conversation, 10 weeks later, you took me by surprise with that question because no, I'm back at baseline. Like I feel I'm ungrateful for things. Like I don't appreciate getting into bed. I don't appreciate like getting a warm meal and eating it at a solid table. Like I forgot, and it's an interesting reminder to anchor yourself, like you said we spoke about gratification and being grateful before. It's an interesting reminder. You've kind of shaken me up a bit and been like, no, actually, you probably should do better to remember how lucky you are.
What do you think you learned about yourself on that particular trip?
The main one was that I'm stronger than I thought I was. Because like I said in this preamble, I was petrified of it and I thought the suffering would be unbearable. And I was so happy that I got through it and I proved to myself that I was as resilient as I thought I could be. If anything, I had more in the tank. Like I could have done something harder and longer. Yeah. So I was pretty proud of that. I learned that I'm good at biting my tongue when I have to. If you're like unhappy with people or people aren't treating you right, I'm good at playing the game and doing things for the greater good of the team, which I was very proud of because I thought I might snap into a childlike argumentative state. So I was glad I was able to rise above that constantly. And we spoke about island life a bit on this podcast as well. When you strip everything back to basics, it's a good reminder that I'm pretty good at anchoring myself to this, as are you in modern life. But the row kind of accentuated it. It was the fact that you can just it's easy to take pleasure in the small things, like having a nice breakfast in the sun with a friend, and then having your morning coffee and doing your training in the morning. Having a nice cold shower. Getting on with a little bit of work, like all of these things are just so enjoyable in contrast to extreme suffering. And I definitely do appreciate the small things still in life. So in answer to your earlier question, I don't appreciate as much as I should, like getting into bed or eating a meal, but I do appreciate like a good conversation like this or having a coffee with a friend. Like those things I still take a lot of joy in.
Yeah, like reconnecting.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we kind of end the episode, I could probably sit here and talk to you for a long time. But
also, I feel like a bit of a dick because I know that it's your podcast, but it's been so much about me. So I'd love to come on again and talk. Throw it back at you at some point because you're always interviewing people. Yeah. But I'd love to put you in the hot seat a little bit.
Yeah, we can do that. But I always like to be thought provoking before we leave, right? So I'm gonna do some quick fire questions. I think I know what the answer is to the first one. Hardest thing you've ever done?
Deciding to leave my job.
Wow. Yeah. That wasn't what I expected.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're obviously big into fitness, and we didn't get to kind of cover like your coaching journey, but maybe we can do like a little part 2. But you're obviously massive into fitness, and for anyone listening to the audio, go and check the video. Good looking lad, stacked. His biceps like bulging. He lifted his arm up a second ago, his veins just bursting out of his arms. Teach me. But no,
we'll have to train together.
Yeah, for sure. Name 5 exercises you would do if you had to only do them for the rest of your life.
I love this question. I train a lot like this as well because I like keeping things simple. Romanian deadlift, barbell back squat, incline dumbbell press, dips, and pull-ups.
Nice. What's one question you don't have the answer to?
That's tough. I guess I don't know whether I'm right, as in I orient my life towards what I think will be the most fulfilling and will make me the most content and appreciate and be grateful for, and I've tried my hardest for all of these 100 years or however many years I'm gifted on planet Earth. But I don't know with any certainty that I'll make the right decisions and I'll get to that age and have done the right things.
But life is just about learning. So.
Exactly.
And then on the final one, what's one message you would want to leave for men that follow you in terms of like inspirational side of things? Like, especially with, I think now more than ever, like I've told you a lot about Menathon, right? So obviously suicide for men is massive at the moment. And I feel like a lot of men are lost in life and they have no purpose. So just to reframe that question, like there's obviously a lot of people that follow you, and I'm sure you probably get this because you do a lot of Q&As, but like if you were to give one kind of like learning message to the specifically men that follow you, what would it be?
I'm going to cheat and I'm going to do two, because one of them's harsher and one of them is like more encouraging. The encouraging one is keep getting up, because everyone that you look around and, like you said, some people follow me, some people are inspired by me, some people are inspired by you. We all have role models and mentors. You think that their success is a linear journey of like, you know, things have gone well for them and they're taking advantage of it and working hard, but things just keep going well and they keep succeeding. That is not the case. It's not the case for you. It's not the case for me. Like, we're constantly eating shit and things are going wrong and struggling and like just overcoming adversity, even though, you know, my life might look great or other people that you look up to's life might look great. That's what you see on the outside. There's a lot of hard work and things going wrong on the inside that you don't see. So I think the thing that I've learned over the last year more than anything is success comes from consistently getting up and keep trying on all the days that you don't feel like it. And then the one that's a bit harsher is no one's coming to save you. That was the realization I had when I was 25 years old. And I thought that, you know, going to university and doing a normal job and like being slightly left-leaning politically and like having those kind of communist societal values of like, you know, let's all do this together. You know, there comes a point in a man's life where you just, you know, you're going to get out-competed, and that's just not the way capitalism works. And no one else cares if you, as harsh as it is, no one else cares if you succeed or fail, except for maybe a couple of loved ones in your immediate family. And I think taking that mindset can empower you, if you use it in the right way, to think, you know, I have the power to improve my life, and that's how I like to frame it.
Yeah, no, I like that because again, another harsh one is that I tend to say to people like around me is like, you know, whenever you make a decision, just remember that you enter the world alone and you leave it alone. So you've got to do what makes you happy rather than trying to please others, you know. And I think when you actually think about that and go, oh shit, yeah, when I do die, I'm actually alone. Obviously you have people around there, but you go into the afterlife just you. And I think if you can actually take that with leading with decisions of what's going to make you happy in the future, it's going to, I think, would help a lot of people.
Yeah, don't live for anyone else.
Exactly. But I've really enjoyed this conversation. As I could go on forever, but I want to thank you for obviously taking the time out of your day to come down. And yeah, hopefully this is the start of a good friendship as well. And I hope to welcome you like properly to Dubai soon.
Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, we've had a coffee, we've done a podcast, we've still got to train.
Yeah.
So yeah, exciting times.
And the Menathon beasting as well.
Yeah, God, I'm not looking forward to that. I've spent this whole podcast saying, look how hard I am. I was just rowing across an ocean.
Check my stories on Sunday. But guys, you know, obviously, selfishly, I do this podcast because I enjoy the stories that I get to hear about, face on, and ask the questions. Like sometimes when you listen to a podcast, you're like, why didn't you ask that question? Why didn't you ask this question? But I get to ask this, and selfishly, I enjoy it so much. And you know, Adam was saying at the like during the conversation, like connecting and stuff like that is good. But also as well, one of the reasons why I started the podcast originally was because I'd love to just help one person that maybe is in a position in life where they're a bit lost, don't really know what to do. And I want to try and help spread that message that people can turn their life around, do whatever they need to do with the right mindset. So we can do that and spread this message by liking, sharing with a friend that you might find that this podcast will be useful for them. They might take some value from it. And also, if you really have enjoyed the conversation, then make sure you follow, subscribe, and all that good stuff.
Can I add something as well?
Yes.
I couldn't agree more. Like, the one thing you can do to help any like upcoming people that you've enjoyed their content or enjoy, the messages that they're spreading is like, give this podcast, not only give this podcast a follow, but mainly share it with people, because, you're then starting that snowball effect and helping people like Dan like build and have this positive impact for more than one person. So yeah, if you've enjoyed this, share this podcast and share other podcasts that you listen to of Dan's, so that you can help him on that journey as well.
Thank you. I'll give you that 1,000 dirhams in a bit.
Thank you.
But no, everything's going to be in the show notes, so you can follow Adam. And now they've got a new cool little collaborator thing on YouTube, so you can actually follow him directly. He'll be there for you to reach out. Just some cool stuff with his content. We haven't even scratched the surface on his personal brand and what he's up to with his coaching, but he does awesome Q&A sessions, so you can follow him, ask him loads of questions. And follow his journey as well as what we're doing on the podcast as well. So we'll see you next time, and thank you for listening to the Daniel Leese Podcast.